And I think that's why we all are artists, because we like color and like to play with color and see what we can do with it. But today I think I'm going to talk about sort of a reduced palette instead of having, when we go to the paint store, we see all these amazing colors, purples and fluorescents and grays and all this stuff, and you just want to take a tube of that home and play with it. And, while that's good, I think that you're going to get more out of what you're learning if you limit your color palette to, basically for plein air, I think you can get away with using the basic colors, red, blue, yellow, in both a cool and a warm color. A cool red would be alizarin crimson. Warm red would be cadmium red light. Let's see, a cool blue would be, I believe, ultramarine blue. And a warm blue might be, I'm not sure what that is, but you can get the warm and the cool of each of the basic colors. And I think that if you start learning how to mix them, you can get all those colors that you find appealing to you in the store, and you're going to learn a lot more about color by reducing your palette. Basically, you've got your primary colors, your red, yellow, and your blue. Your secondary colors, which is a mixture of two of your primaries, and your tertiary colors, which are a mixture of your primary and another secondary color. And if you learn how to mix these colors, you're going to, I think, achieve a better result in your painting. I know that I've done them before. I was more familiar with this. I just grabbed my paints and just start painting, and I was having fun, but the final product just was a little off somehow. And this gives some rationale to that. Generally, in a painting, you want to, especially in a plein air painting, you want to reduce the number of decisions that you have to make, which is why we do the reduced palette. You can reduce color to a few different elements. One is hue, one is value, one is temperature, and one is saturation. And using all those different tools, you can arrive at a pleasing, finished plein air painting. The first thing I think you need to talk about is the density of the paint. Generally, paints come in two different types. One's more transparent and one's more opaque. Generally, you want to use transparent paints for distance, to suggest atmospheric effects, or just to allow the background to show through it. Transparent paints give you a luminosity that you don't get with the opaque paints, obviously, and that gives you more depth in your painting. Generally, you use transparent paints in your dark areas, and as you move towards the light areas, you want to use more opaque paints. In addition to being aware of those couple of qualities of the paint, you also need to be aware of color harmony and contrast when you're painting. If you have too many highly saturated colors in your painting, each area is going to compete for attention. You need to focus on what your focal point is, and then mix all your colors to get to that end. And generally, where your focal point is, it generally becomes lighter. You want the light to focus on that and everything else to sort of fade out. So that's one of the tools that you have at your disposal. The other is the temperature of color. Generally, cooler colors like blue tend to recede, and warmer colors come forward, so you can set up sort of a planar thing in your painting as you paint. Along with intensity of color and saturation, like I said, if everything's intense color, everything's going to compete with everything else. You need to, like I said, focus on your focal area and put your brightest colors there and let grays kind of dominate the picture. The grays will sort of act as a backdrop for all those brilliant colors that you're trying to catch. Generally, it's been said that grays do all the work while color gets all the credit. People are, I love color, as you well know, and I'm drawn to vibrant color, but I've realized that when you're trying to do a brilliant sunset or sunrise, you need grays around it to make that come alive. You need that to bring that light to the foreground. And by using grays, you learn a lot about color. Like I said, if you use a limited palette and you intermix your colors that you're using throughout the painting, you're going to get a more unified painting. Sometimes that's called a mother color theory. Like say if you're mixing, if you decide you're going to do a warm painting and you want reds and oranges to predominate, you would eliminate blue and maybe put in a purple as a complement to that, or a green let's see. Well, like I said, you need to limit your values. You need to limit your color. The mother color is a mixture of all the colors on the palette. To unify your painting, you need a little bit of each color throughout the painting, although you don't want, say, like a 50% split. You want to have a little bit of variety. Anything that's sort of 50-50 comes across as kind of boring. If you've got a 50-50 value set up on your painting, it's not as interesting as, say, like a 75 dark, 25% light. You need to work on your value. Value scales in colors come from 1 to 9. 1 being the darkest and 9 being the lightest, which is the opposite of what I would think it would be. But if you limit the values in your painting to, like, say, 4 or 5 values, one dark value, 1 light value, and 2 medium values, that painting's going to read more effectively than if you try to put the entire range of values possible in there. In order to get the correct value, a lot of times you have to lighten the colors that you're working with. Generally, white is used to lighten colors, but that has a tendency to make them more opaque and more chalky. Another way to lighten up your colors is to sort of move up the value scale, or the color scale. Like if you've got a red and you want to lighten it, instead of using white, you would use like red-orange. And that would not take away the intensity of the color. And if that's not warm enough, you would add then an orange to lighten it even further. Generally, white tends to make everything more opaque and bring everything forward. A lot of people don't use black in their palette, but I experiment with different palettes. Sometimes I use black just to see what it's going to do for me, and I think you can set yourself up little exercises all the time to use different colors and see what you can do with them. Black tends to, when you mix black with a color, it's called a shade of a color, and when you mix white, it's called a tint. And by varying those values in your painting, you establish planes and the atmospheric effects that you're looking for. That's pretty much what I have. I have a couple of books here that I've found very helpful. This one in particular tells you how to achieve certain effects with well, she goes through how to set up your palette and all of this stuff, but she uses a limited palette in her painting and tells you how to set up different scenarios for like sunsets. This is a really excellent book. I recommend it.
Who's the author on that?
The author is Vicki McMurray. She tells you how to set up atmospheric effects, and really excellent book. I've read that several times over. This is also another very good book. This is by James Gurney. He's the one who did the little pop-up dinosaur books a while ago. And I bought this book because it's got, it tells you all kinds of things about how to achieve, like reverse atmospheric perspective, golden hour lighting, sunsets, a number of things in here that I think all of us would benefit from reading. Or I'd buy this book. It's $20. It's well worth the money. And if you want, you're welcome to check them out while we're here and get the painting. That's about all I have to say, actually. So I hope that was somewhat informative.